For some more analysis on the political situation here in France, I'm joined by France 24 International Affairs editor Angela Diffley in the studio. Angela, why has Macron ruled out this candidate proposed by the New Popular Front, Lucie Castet, when traditionally the Prime Minister would come from the winningest parliamentary group?
Yeah, he's continuing consultations, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. As Emerald said there, so this election, three roughly equal groupings. Nevertheless, the largest grouping is from that left-wing alliance, and they are talking about a denial of democracy because the candidate they agreed on after much talking has been flatly rejected by Emmanuel Macron. Now, the reason this is not quite as straightforward as that is that Macron has under the Constitution, it is his prerogative to choose the Prime Minister. Traditionally, that Prime Minister comes from the party or the grouping with the biggest number of votes, the biggest number of MPs. That would be this left-wing alliance. But traditionally, that party or grouping that wins the biggest number of votes also matches the mood and the priorities of the French people. And you can argue that well over 50% of the French people voted for parties on the right. And so their grouping would not accurately match the mood, the priorities of the French people in these elections.
Good point.
The other key reason, and this is the reason that Macron is citing, is that any candidate put forward by this left-wing alliance would be immediately voted down in a vote of no confidence. All of the other parties have said so. We heard François Bayrou saying these other parties want nothing to do with this bloc. So it would not be a stable coalition. Within no time at all, it would be voted down. And that is for two reasons. Any budget it produces, and there has to be a budget by October, might well be broadly anti-capitalist. It would not meet the approval of a majority in Parliament. It is, in many respects, an anti-capitalist alliance because it is dominated by the far left. The other reason is that for many people, this alliance, because it is dominated by the far left, is just as unpalatable as the far-right Rassemblement National, which was boycotted by many voters. This far-left party has failed on several occasions to denounce violent protests. It has failed. It has been highly critical of the police. And in many ways, it is seen as extreme, as outside the Republican arc, as the far right. And that is how Emmanuel Macron himself qualifies it. And a fair number of French voters are glad that he does.
All right. Well, what outcome is Macron hoping for by continuing these consultations? He met with a delegation from the right-wing Les Républicains today.
Yeah, so those talks with the Les Républicains, that is now has been renamed La Droite Républicain. It is the mainstream right party, which was a big force once in French politics. It was Nicolas Sarkozy's old party, now much reduced, only between 40 and 50 MPs. And those talks this morning went nowhere. Their leader came out and said it was all very disappointing. Macron proposed nothing. That party has ruled out any formal coalition with Macron centrists. And so they say they will support on certain policy issues, but no change there. What Macron is trying to do is to prize the centre-left elements away from that left-wing alliance and try to cobble together some sort of centrist coalition, national unity government, if you like, from smaller parties on the right, but the centre-right, right through to centre-left, Social Democrats, if you like, in that left-wing alliance. Whether he will be able to do it is extremely doubtful. He has sown considerable division on the left. It was already there. It has broken out. Some on that left-wing alliance are calling for his impeachment on the far left. That has created division because those on the centre-left want nothing to do with such an idea. There are calls for protests on the 7th of September. Some on that left-wing alliance back them, some don't. There is division. But so far, in terms of finding a new Prime Minister, we are no nearer.
It's hard to imagine him finding the numbers if the La Droite Républicaine is not with him.
It isn't. Tonight he's at the Olympic opening ceremony, the Paralympic opening ceremony. Tomorrow he's off to Serbia. Short time frame.
Well, a lot on his plate and the pressure mounting. France 24 International Affairs editor Angela Diffley, thanks so much for that analysis.